different places, and I'm trying to remember which one
Get me up.
rules.
Linda, Katie's here.
Oh,
Well, Ken, I'm not mad. I just didn't. I noticed it and noticed there was myself and one other person. I said, "Oh, it's a little different than what was mentioned when we had our interview." So,
Hi.
okay,
I would have said to you it's 2 years, and the charter may say something different.
okay. Thanks.
So much for that expertise.
sorry that we're not. It's kind of clear as mud.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
This conference will now be recorded.
And we have a quorum. So we're ready to go.
Katie will be here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're also going to wait until Jolene gives us the heads up on that she's done with the media booth for IT. So.
Okay. Vera, you have some serious headphones there. Great.
Vera, you're muted. I'm hoping that's why you're not coming through. We didn't test the headphone settings.
You don't need to mute yourself at all when you have the headphones. Because we can't get any feedback.
Okay. I'm here.
Okay.
I
Hi.
got you, Katie. Vera is trying to, I think, figure out how to unmute herself on the laptop.
Now that we make you having our last meeting, Vera is up to date with all the equipment.
She's here in town hall, so I loaned her my headset.
Oh, that's why. Okay. All right. Oh, that's right. She has a meeting later on.
Jen, can you go into council chambers and help Vera? Okay, we're not. Okay. We cannot start yet because we apparently have a technical issue from Jolene, so and it's not Vera.
Okay.
So let me see if I can.
Hello. Maybe can you undo the headphones, or do you want the headphones?
We hear you, Vera. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. These are Linda's.
Yes. Thank you. Sure.
Should be right hand bottom corner on a laptop.
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh,
Let's X. You can X out of that.
oh, nope.
Oh, settings.
That's where we go.
Paul, can you say something?
Yes, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? No, we can't. You can.
I can hear you.
Okay. Is it the recording that we're having a problem with?
It doesn't stream until a certain time, and that's what they're waiting for.
Oh, maybe we have to wait till 6:30 anyway.
No, we're waiting. Our IT is just going to fix the time, so we're
Okay. Change the clock to 6:30 and then it'll start.
We are officially. We're officially good now.
We're officially good. Okay.
We are officially good. We are streaming on YouTube and Town Hall streams.
Okay. I call to order the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on July 22nd, 2021 at 6:08 p.m. Yes, Linda.
Hey. Yeah, and I had to cut it off because we were getting feedback because I was testing it. All right. Thanks. Bye. Sorry about that. There should not be any feedback anymore from the delayed video.
Okay. Members present are Aho, Accorsi, Cotton, Tony, Ron, Ward, Cooley, Plant, and alternate DeVivo, who is seated for absent members. Chandy. Anybody else? That's all. Yeah. Okay. There, we have some minutes from the July 13th special meeting. I see you, Carlita. I don't hear you, but I see you.
As a matter of record, I did watch the recording.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd also like to say as a matter of record that I, Luann Cooley, also watched the recording.
Okay. Very good.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay. Moved by Tony.
Plant seconds it.
Plant second. All in favor? Okay. Passes unanimously. There's a zoning agent report. Any questions about the zoning agent report? If not, we can.
It looks like Vera's trying to turn her mic on.
Right, she looks like she might want to speak.
I tell you what, while Vera's working on her mic, I will just make one announcement under the zoning agent report. So we did have something for interpretations of zoning regulations. And as the three officers are aware, I did bring a question to them last week regarding whether or not a small overhang over a door was authorized to encroach into a setback. And so that given the nature that this was just a minor overhang, it's just for weather purposes, and it only extended slightly past the roof overhang, which was already in the setback. All three officers concurred that, yes, that was acceptable. So we did just want to apprise the commission of that. And we sought that interpretation through Article 11, Section A. All right, Vera, did Jolene help you figure out how to turn your mic on?
Yes. I just wanted to say that I thought it was an incredible body of work that the planning and zoning staff has been able to do without bringing it to us. And I just thought that it was impressive. So I wanted to say that for the record.
Yes, thank you, Vera, and that credit really goes to Jolene. So she's been doing a fantastic job there.
Great. Thank you, Jolene. Okay, so we have some public hearings. Linda, would you like to do the honors to read the necessary parts?
I would be happy to. And while I do that, I'm actually going to share my screen just so folks that are interested in participating in a hearing can see how to do so. If you will bear with me, here we go. So that should be up for everyone to see now. All right. So as a reminder to all participants this evening, including members and staff, please state your name before speaking. For those viewing at home on live stream or on channel 191, please understand that there is a 1 to 2 minute time lag due to transmission delays. If you'll be providing verbal testimony during the public hearing, you can call into the meeting at any time. We will take a few minutes after the applicant's presentation to give people time to call in. The guidelines for the public hearings this evening are as follows. The purpose of tonight's hearings is to receive relevant information about the proposed applications from the public. Order and decorum shall be maintained at all times during the hearings. The commission reserves the right to adjourn the hearing to another date and time if the discussion becomes unruly and unmanageable. Given the virtual format, we ask that everyone bear with us if we encounter any glitches. If we are unable to overcome technical issues and/or the commission is having difficulty understanding information presented in this format, the hearing will be continued to another meeting. The order of presentations this evening for the hearings will be first the applicant, and then any public comment, first support, then opposition, and then undetermined positions or requests for additional information. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address and any party, group, or organization you represent, if any, for the record before beginning your comments. Limit your comments to the subject of the public hearing. Avoid repetition where possible. Summarize reports and letters that are submitted to the commission rather than reading them aloud, as all written information is copied and distributed to members. Direct all questions and comments to the chair. Do not attempt to engage in dialogue with members of the commission, staff, or any parties to the hearing. Speak clearly to ensure your comments are audible to the members of the public watching from home and are recorded. Commission members may ask questions of anyone providing testimony, but will not discuss the relative merits of the application until the hearing is closed. Failure to abide by these policies and procedures may result in a muting of your microphone or in dismissal from the hearing. Instructions on how to participate in the public hearing are listed on the agenda as well as on your screen presently. If you would like to call in, please call 1-872-240-3212 and use access code 175-246-893. Again, that is phone number 1-872-240-3212 and access code 175-246-893. If you encounter any problems calling into the hearing, please call 860-429-3341 and a staff member will assist you. The first application or first hearing that we have this evening, Mr. Chair, was scheduled to start at 6 p.m. It is the special permit application of Glisten Diamonds, applicant Anthony Raggi, as the applicant and Anthony Raggi owner, for a change in non-conforming use to authorize a research library at 483 Stores Road, parcel ID 29.96.16, PZC file 1366-2.
Research laboratory. Yes.
Yes.
Research library wouldn't be quite as.
Oh, sorry, laboratory. Sorry about that.
So the public hearing is open at 6:15 p.m. With members present: Aho, Corsi, Cooley, Cotton, Frattoni, Plant, Ron, Ward, and alternate DeVivo, seated for absent member Chandy. Do we have a public notice to read?
Mr. Chair, this is actually a continuation
Oh,
of
this is a
a
continuation.
public
Okay,
hearing that
that's right. That's
started,
right.
last week.
Okay.
The reason that we continued this hearing was that we had not received comments from Wyndham Waterworks, and I am sorry to say we still have not received comments from Wyndham Waterworks. We have contacted them to see when we might get those. So the staff recommendation is that we continue this to August 2nd, but I did ask the applicant to attend in case there were any questions. I know we had a few members who were not at the hearing last week, but did watch the recording. Or if there were any other questions that members had. Again, the only thing we're waiting for at this point is comments from Wyndham Waterworks due to the nature of the research laboratory and the presence in a public drinking water supply watershed.
Okay. Are there any additional questions from the commission at this time? Okay, if not, we need a motion to continue.
Yes, and I will change my screen on that. I'm not seeing any members of the public other than the applicant, who I did ask to come just in case we had any questions, but there is the motion for continuance for you. And let me know if you need me to increase the size of that.
I'll be glad to do that. I move to adjourn the public hearing on the special permit application of Glisten Diamonds for a change in non-conforming use at 483 Stores Road, PZC file 1366-2 to 6:45 p.m. on Monday, August 2nd, 2021 in the Town Hall Council Chambers at 4 South Eagleville Road.
Moved by Ward.
I'll second it. Frattoni.
Second by Frattoni. All in favor? Passes unanimously. We need to wait till 6:30 for the second one, right?
So I'm going to suggest that in the meantime, you may want to move some of your older new business items up. Item A under new business is an application that was actually submitted on Monday, which is the date of your regular meeting. So pursuant to statute, that is the official receipt date. Staff has scheduled a public hearing on this for August 2nd. And so we did put a motion on the agenda for you to formally do so. And I will note that it is PZC file 1375, not 13 = 75. There's a little typo there.
Okay.
But I'm gonna put that motion on the screen if you would like to take action on that now.
Okay, let's get that done.
Well, if nobody else wants to do it, I will. I'll move to schedule a public hearing on the special permit application of Robert Cardinal, PZC file 13-75, for earthwork in excess of the maximum permitted by Article 10, Section H.2 of the zoning regulations on property located on Pleasant Valley Road, southwest of Mansfield Avenue, Assessor's Parcel ID 36.88.90, for Monday, August 2, 2021. Do we need a time for that, Linda?
It's actually been scheduled for 6:40 p.m.
At 6:40 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
And one clarification on that, it should just be section H. Jolene noted to me that adding the .2 was a little confusing.
All right.
So we're just going to go with section H.
Section H.
Okay, moved by Ward,
Plant seconds it.
Plant, second by Plant. All in favor, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Anything else we can get done in 10 minutes?
So anticipating that we might have some time for you this evening before 6:30, there are a few other things that you have that you can talk about or you can decide to pass. So item E is under old business, temporary and limited moratorium on cannabis establishments. So we did provide you with a copy of the actual public act. And I think what we have talked about on this is that you would like to talk about this as a commission before inviting other committees. So I wanted you to have that public act so you can start reading through that. And what we will also do as a staff is send you out an email with some of the key sections. This is a very long act that deals with a lot of different things related to cannabis, and there's only certain portions that actually impact zoning and local land use decisions. So we'll send you an update with the sections that you need to pay particular attention to, if that would help everyone.
Okay.
Well, I have a question. Linda, does the act itself bring some clarity to the relationship between the current medical marijuana dispensary and a relationship with the new entities? Is any connection made? Is there?
So if you look, it's actually on page, literally the first section of this is essentially terms and definitions. And so on page 2, it defines cannabis establishment means a producer, dispensary, facility, cultivator, micro cultivator. And it goes on to expand. And I believe that producer and dispensary facility are as defined in chapter 420F. So it's that dispensary facilities are still covered, and I believe producers are the same, that they are still covered by 420F, which was the medical marijuana. I could be wrong on the producer. So we'll double check that. But on the zoning piece, I think originally it was saying that, I think it gives you the, I believe, and I'll have to double check this, and that's one of the things we'll look at, is that it gives the communities the ability to allow, to prohibit, or to establish reasonable conditions on cannabis establishments. And it does not, to my knowledge, actually distinguish between medical marijuana at that point. So I think that's a distinction you can make. But the original draft of the legislation basically said we could regulate cannabis establishments, but not medical marijuana. I think now that it's in the same definition, and that's something we'd have to confer with the town attorney on, I believe you can actually regulate both, and you can distinguish between the two. So, because I would also argue that you could distinguish between someone who's selling and someone who is cultivating or micro cultivator. So when you look at that cannabis establishment, there's a long list of different types of establishments. So I think presumably that means you have the ability to actually make distinctions between those. Not sure I clarified anything for you there, Ken.
Well, what it tells me is that I need to give that a good reading.
And again, we'll try and send you the sections again. Obviously, this is a very, just pulling up the link, it's over 200 pages. So I want to get you the sections that are actually, Luann's telling me over 300. So we'll get you the particular sections that you should be paying attention to.
That would be helpful.
All right.
Linda, there may also be a document prepared by the Office of Legislative Research that may summarize the bill and clarify as well. I can send a link to you for that. That might be helpful.
Okay. And I honestly, while I attached under a new business item B, I did attach a 2021 legislative summary for you. I cannot remember. I don't believe it addresses cannabis. Oh, no, it does. It does address recreational cannabis. So there's a little bit, that document, which was put out by APA, or the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association, is a nice summary to look at in terms of the various new laws that were enacted. And so again, it doesn't get into, it just gives you a high level view, but that an OLR link would be very much appreciated, Luann. So I'm guessing before we start talking cannabis, you guys want some more information that kind of winnows this down. Okay. All right. So the other items at 6:26, we have 4 minutes. So as I said, we did provide the legislative summary, and I think at some point we will need to kind of go through this, probably with regulatory review on some of the other items in terms of tweaks that we need to make to the regulations based on the new zoning enabling legislation on accessory dwelling units, multifamily. I think for the most part, we are in fairly good shape. However, there may be some adjustments that we need to, some tweaks that we need to make. And we should probably just go through all of these. And with the exception, I would say, of cannabis, which is a whole separate animal, anything else look at as kind of one package of amendments to make adjustments. One of those, it will probably be doing a search for the word character and finding different ways to address that in the regulations. All right.
T-3 and counting.
T-3. All right. So with that, the only other new business item that we had for you this evening was just an update on the affordable housing plan. So you adopted that on July 6th. The town council adopted it on July 12th. And Jen has now filed that on the town's website and with the town clerk. So we are in compliance with state statute for getting that adopted. We will have to update it in 5 years, but before we have to update it, we need to start implementing it. So there is an ad hoc committee on affordable and workforce housing that 3 of you are on. And we will... that committee will be working on it, but the reason I put this on here was because there are some specific zoning recommendations, which I think the commission will need to take up, specifically with regard to the minimum percentage of affordable housing units required. And then also just to note that during the council discussion, and I believe it was part of the public comment at the hearing, another look at how the fee in lieu functions. So that was something that I know some of the counselors brought up and had an issue with in terms of offering a fee in lieu. And so I think that's some of those provisions that as we look at what the minimum percentage is, we should probably be looking at the fee in lieu language as well to see if you want to make adjustments. And so I think my question on that is this something you would like to start with the regulatory review committee? I'm seeing some nods. So it looks like reg review, you'll be getting that. And then I do want to thank and commend Jen. She was the project manager for this and did a fabulous job getting this from start to finish in 6 months. So I think we asked for an extension, but we only needed like 15 days of it, Jen. So great job. And now we have something to work from. And those of you on the ad hoc committee will definitely be delving into this in more detail. Jen, do you have anything to add?
No, I'll just echo what you said.
So we are at 6:29. I will say that I do see the attorney for our applicant whose hearing is at 6:30. And we do have someone who called in. If you can identify yourself so we can name you, that would be very helpful, so that we actually have 2 callers. So if you call in.
Matt Robillard with BL Companies.
Okay, Matt.
And John Mancini with BL Companies.
Okay, so the hearing for application of Champagne Toy Store LLC to amend Articles 4, 7, 8, and 10 is opened at 6:30. This is also a continuation, right?
No.
Oh, okay. So I got it wrong both times. So we need to read the notice.
It's okay, Paul. I did not give you a cheat sheet. Do you want to list the members present before I read that notice?
Yes. Members present are Aho, Corsi, Cooley, Cotton, Fatoni, Plant, Ron, Ward, and alternate DeVivo, seated for absent member Chandy.
All right, but I'm going to need to just bear with me while I zoom into the legal notice here. That it's a little bit small. The following notice was published in the Hartford Courant on July 10th and July 16th, 2021. Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing notice. The Mansfield Planning and Zoning Commission will hold the following public hearing at a special meeting on Thursday, July 22nd, 2021 via virtual meeting to hear comments regarding the following application. At 6:30 p.m., application of Champagne Toy Store LLC to amend Articles 4, 7, 8, and 10 of the Mansfield zoning regulations to establish provisions for drive-through facilities and authorize drive-through facilities accessory to restaurants in the PB-1 zone with special permit approval. PZC file 1374. Information on how to participate in the public hearing will be on the meeting agenda, which will be posted at http://www.mansfieldct.gov/agenda center no less than 24 hours before the meeting. No information from the public shall be received after the close of the public hearings. Additional information regarding this application is available in the planning office. Paul Aho, Chair, Vera Ward, Secretary. I will note for the commission that there are a few items that were added to the agenda packet after the agenda was initially published with its list of materials, including a memo from myself dated July 21st, 2021. And I actually think I need to refresh this because I added more items that weren't showing up on my list. Minutes of the draft traffic authority minutes from July 13th, 2021. Excerpts from the Plan of Conservation Development related to community design principles and mixed use center. And then late this afternoon, we did receive an opinion from a town attorney, Kevin Deneen. So that was added late this afternoon. That is dated July 22nd, 2021. And we also received almost simultaneously proposed amendments revised to July 22nd, 2021. And that is because the applicant's attorney and our attorney spoke to resolve the issues. So he has provided comments, and I believe Dory has tried to address those. The one other note that I will want to make is that you will see an asterisk in front of the statement of justification, and that is because I think what was originally included in your packet had the name statement of justification, but I realized yesterday it was actually just another copy of the original proposed amendments. So with that, I will, one final note. Oh, actually, I need to read a few letters to you. So this was referred as required by statute to adjoining communities, to the public notice registry. It was filed with the town clerk. And it was also sent to the 3 councils of government that represent the adjoining communities. The Northeast Council of Governments acknowledged receipt. However, they did not provide any specific comments. Both the Capital Region Council of Governments and Southeast Connecticut Council of Governments did provide responses, which I will read for the record. The Southeast Council of Governments provided the following comments dated July 19th, 2021. Dear Mr. Aho, I'm writing in response to an application to amend the zoning regulations of the town of Mansfield. The application was referred to this agency pursuant to Section 8-3B of the Connecticut General Statutes. The proposed zoning text amendment seeks to define drive-through facility, allow drive-through facilities in the PB1 zone, modify setback requirements for buildings with drive-through facilities, and create use regulations for such buildings. Based on a review of the materials submitted, I do not believe the proposed regulation amendments will have a negative intermunicipal impact. If you have any questions, please contact me at 860-889-2324. Sincerely, Samuel Alexander, AICP Planner 3. The Capital Region Council of Governments provided comments on June 18th, 2021. They acknowledged receipt and provided the following comment. The staff of the Regional Planning Commission of the Capital Region Council of Governments has reviewed the zoning referral and finds no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or the concerns of neighboring towns. The public hearing date has been scheduled for July 19th, 2021. In accordance with our procedures, this letter will constitute final CROG action on this referral. Questions concerning this referral should be directed to Christopher Henchy. And that is from Jennifer Bardis Early, Chairman, and Brendan Malone, Vice Chairman of the Regional Planning Commission, and signed by Christopher Henchy, Transportation Planner. And then the final note before I turn it over to Dory Famigletti, who is the attorney for the applicant, is that you will note that some of these referrals do note a July 19th hearing date. As you recall, last week you did change the hearing date from July 19th to July 22nd. So that is why you're seeing that difference. And with that, I am going to turn my microphone off, and unless the chair has any objections, let the applicant get going, because I know some of our folks have a short time this evening.
Go ahead, take it away.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Linda. For the record, this is Dory Famigletti from Kahan, Kerensky, and Capicella. I'm representing CPH Mansfield, who is the agent of the applicant tonight, the applicant being Champagne Toy Store LLC. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have a terrible cold, and I'm going to be sucking on a throat lozenge so I can try and get through this without coughing. But if I do cough, I apologize. I'm glad it's virtual and you can't all get my germs this way. Also on the phone, you had heard that we have Matt Robillard and John Mancini from BL Companies. They are here in case there's any questions and technical issues having to do with the proposed design standards that we've got for you this evening. There are consultants on this project as well. If you'll recall, we were before you in early April to discuss the concept of amending the regulations to allow for a drive-through for restaurants in the PB1 zone. The general consensus, I believe, at that time was drive-throughs we're seeing as more and more the norm, and they're much more in demand now, especially in light of the COVID pandemic. And we were pretty much, I guess, if you will, given the green light to proceed working with town staff to draft a regulation for your review and consideration that would allow drive-throughs. Now, keep in mind, presently, your regulations do not have any standards, design standards for drive-throughs, although they are, I believe, permitted with pharmacies and banks, but expressly prohibited presently with all restaurants. The proposed regulation would implement design standards for all drive-through services and specifically permit them for restaurants just in the PB1 zone. We talked to the town planner about this, worked closely with her on the development and the regulation. And for the time being, at least, she had suggested that we narrowly tailor it to just the PB1 zone, which is primarily up at the Route 6 area. It's situated differently than a number of the other planned business zones. And we thought that would be a good area to implement this and see how it works before extending it elsewhere in town. So as I mentioned, we did work closely with the town planner to develop this regulation, and the regulation will clearly identify where and when drive-through facilities will be permissible and how they should be designed. We consulted a lot of documentation that was provided by your town planner with design guidelines for multiple municipalities. The majority of them, I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, but we're from Canada. I believe Oshawa is in Canada, and then Markham, the town of or city of Markham, I believe, is in Ontario, and then there were Toronto design requirements as well. They were very comprehensive. They were a good indicator, I think, and source for me to get a feel for what I think we're trying to achieve here, which is paying particular attention to balancing the demand and the convenience of drive-throughs, but still maintain the pedestrian-friendly community that we have in Mansfield. So we really wanted to make sure we could do both. There were also some design standards from Long Beach. And in addition, I also reviewed some local regulations that we have in other towns having to do with drive-throughs. I consulted Willimantic, South Windsor, East Hartford. Interestingly, a number of towns that I'm aware of that have drive-throughs don't have drive-through standards. So not unlike Mansfield, a lot of towns are allowing this type of a use simply as a special permit without any specific design criteria and standards. And I think that implementing a regulation like this is a good belt and suspenders way to make sure you cover all bases. So after reviewing all of that documentation provided by the town planner, doing some of our own research, we drafted a proposal. We went back and forth with some edits with the town planner. We met with the traffic authority, made some further revisions. They had some particular concerns with regard to queuing standards. I'll take you through what those changes were shortly. And then, as recently as this afternoon, I was able to have a conversation with the town attorney and review some concerns that he had, particularly with regard to modifying the maximum front yard setback and making sure that the language that we built in here doesn't run afoul of the McKenzie case that you may be aware of. That kind of restricts your ability to modify and waive certain regulations. It really states that you can change it only if you have very definitive and defined ascertainable standards, and they're not just subjective and purely discretionary to the commission. So at this point, I think the regulation that we have before you, which again, the most recent revision is as of this afternoon, but it just really changes a couple of standards that were eliminated based on the town attorney's recommendation. But I think at this point, we've satisfied your staff and your consultants with regard to the regulations, and we're ready to present that to you and see if there's any final questions that you have that we can answer. So I don't know who has and has not had the opportunity to review this submission and the language we've proposed. I would like to maybe take you briefly through it, and I don't want to read it word for word, but could I just summarize it for you, and then we could go from there and get into questions. If you did have a chance to read Linda's memo, her staff report to you, she did a very nice job summarizing it for me, but I'm going to just take you, like I said, briefly through it right now. And jump in if anyone has questions. I'll just keep talking until someone interrupts me. The first revisions that we're proposing are to Article 4, which are your definitions. And here we're just simply stating a definition for drive-through facilities. And then we recently added a definition for limited service windows and for full service windows. And the reason we did that is because when we met with traffic authority, they thought the queuing standards should be different depending on what type of service window we had. So a limited service window is a window where a customer comes really just to pick up and perhaps pay for their order. They don't order in the queue line. They order either via app, online, or by telephone ahead of time. It's really just a pickup window. Maybe a payment window as well, but really primarily a pickup window. A full service window is more of the typical drive-through restaurant window that you see where you pull up to a menu board or an order board, you order there, then you move on to the pickup window where you pay and you pick up your food and you move on. So there are more delays in that type of a line because you have two stopping points where transactions happen. And because of that, we had to make sure to satisfy the traffic authority, but that queuing line would be longer. So that was the reason for the difference of the definition for those two service windows. Article 7 was modified basically just to add in the PB1 zone, again, only that restaurants could be permitted and have drive-through services if a special permit is obtained in accordance with the designs, in accordance with the new standards we're setting forth. And also if that restaurant has primary access on an arterial road. So in the PB1 zone, although most of the properties are accessed right off of an arterial road, there being Stores Road, there are some properties in the PB1 that are accessed and have their primary entrance on Conteville Road. We didn't think that those would be appropriate for a drive-through facility with the amount of traffic that could be involved. So we did maintain the provision that there had to be primary access on the arterial road. So all of Article 7 really is getting at is in the PB1, if you want to do a restaurant with a drive-through service window, you can seek a special permit. You have to comply with the new standards that we're publishing in a later article. And you can only do it if you're on an arterial road. All of the other changes in here were just specifically stating that in all of the other planned business zones, you cannot do a drive-through service. Again, that is open to your policy interpretation and discretion as to whether or not you want to extend it further in the future. If you see that it works well, if you see that there's a need and a demand for it in other areas of town, areas that you think are appropriate and can accommodate that type of service, then you can certainly change that. But for now, we narrowly tailored it just to the restaurants in the PB1 as your planner requested. The next changes are in Article 8, and those are the dimensional area requirements and floor area requirements. And all we simply did there was add a new note in the column having to do with the front setback line for the PB1 zone. And that new note, right now, let me back up, right now, the front setback line in the PB1 zone is set as a minimum and a maximum. The minimum, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, it's either 0 or 5, and the maximum is 20. The maximum front setback line is an issue if you're, more often than not, if you're going to have a drive-through facility. Because often when you're designing a restaurant or anything with a drive-through facility, because of the traffic circulation and the adequate queuing, and typically you have a drive-through that wraps around a building, you need to increase that setback to accommodate that traffic circulation. So the maximum front yard setback was problematic for drive-through facility design. So what we did is we're adding a note there that says simply see Article 10, Section X. The version before you said Article 10, Section X4. That was a typo, and I did clean that up in this most recent submission this afternoon. It should be see Article 10, Section X5, not 4. For special provisions related to front setback line where a drive-through facility is proposed in the PB1 zone. So it's just a reference over to those new special regulations. Again, only in PB1 and only if a drive-through facility is being proposed. So now we get into Article 10, which are really the guts of this and the substance of the drive-through regulations that are before you. And it sets forth, excuse me, generally, that this provision now will apply to all permitted uses that may request the provision of a drive-through facility. So it captures all drive-through facilities for banks, pharmacies, other retail that might want a drive-through window, as well as restaurants in the PB1. Again, previously your regulations, they don't have any design standards. So although you might have some drive-through service windows for banks and pharmacies, you were probably just relying on your general special permit criteria when you implemented that, and it didn't have all the nitty-gritty having to do with requiring a traffic statement and things like that. So again, at the town planner's suggestion, we made sure that this would encompass all drive-through facilities, not just restaurants. The section then goes on to talk about that drive-through facilities may be permitted by the commission by special permit, and provided that the facility is designed to minimize the impact on the walkable nature of the area. Again, you got to make that consideration and determination, because it's very important from a planning perspective to keep an eye on the pedestrian-friendly nature of your community. We set forth a minimum site size for having a drive-through facility, minimum site size for having one drive-through on site and for having 2 drive-throughs on site. And then we contained a prohibition that you can't have more than 3 drive-throughs on a site, because really it gets so tricky when you get up with that number of drive-throughs trying to manage proper traffic circulation. We just thought it would be best to not even go down that route. And so we cut it off at 2 per site. We then set forth really the key component, which is the requirement of a traffic study in order to support the drive-through facility, and all of the elements that it needs to include. And this is really a necessary component to ensure proper design and safe and efficient traffic circulation, both on and off site, which is very critical for you to make the necessary determinations that you could then issue a special permit. So we set out what needs to be in the traffic study. Again, I'm not going to go into all the detail of what the language says, but it's a comprehensive traffic study that obviously looks at peaks and also the type of services being provided and the projected levels of services on nearby streets. And then we built in there also a specific analysis of the queuing requirements based on the type of service window, whether it be limited or full service, which is something that the traffic authority asked us to look into. The next section under those special regulations for drive-throughs states that if necessary, in order to accommodate a drive-through facility as part of a special permit application, you can eliminate the maximum front setback line. This is what I worked with your town attorney today on. Initially, it said you could increase it. Increasing it left a little vague and open and didn't really put any parameters onto what you could increase it to. So we thought it best just to say eliminate it. Eliminate the front, the maximum front setback line, which is in the PB1 zone. Presently, it's set at 20 feet. And you can eliminate it, again, only for very concrete defined circumstances. Number 1, if you're seeking a special permit for a drive-through. And then number 2, only if certain criteria are met. Those criteria being that the elimination of the front setback line is consistent with the prevailing front setback lines on neighboring properties. So you look left or you look right, you see what's going on there. And if those properties are pushed further back, that might be a justification to push the front setback line back and not maintain the 20-foot maximum setback. But also, what's critical is that the elimination of the maximum front setback line is necessary when you consider things such as lot size, lot configuration, and you need to do those things in order to accommodate safe and efficient traffic circulation associated with a drive-through. And it's got to be supported by the traffic study. So that's really the key criteria. What does the traffic study say? And what are the design demands in order for the site to accommodate a drive-through? That, if that requires an elimination of the 20-foot maximum front yard setback, then that's a valid ground for granting it. And then the last criteria that we left in here, we struck 2 from a prior version, and they were very vague, undefined. That's why your town attorney had concern about them. They really talked about the character of the neighborhood, which is a very subjective term. So we struck those, but we left in what is now number C. We said if you're going to eliminate the maximum front setback line, then you need to demonstrate that you're doing something else to what's called activate the street frontage. And that's a common term that I saw in a lot of the design guidelines that Linda Painter had provided me from other municipalities and communities, where we want to make sure this is still a pedestrian-friendly community and a pedestrian-friendly development. We want to still draw people into the site from the public way. We want to still have a pedestrian access. We still want to have that streetscape be active and dynamic. So it will justify pushing the building back and having a drive-through if you can offset that with other amenities that could include providing for outdoor dining and seating in the front of the building. So again, you're drawing people to the front of the building and pedestrians in. If you can create a clearly defined direct pedestrian access from the street line to the front entry, very clearly defined, you've got that pedestrian way from the public way right up to the building, which is really a lot of the walkability elements that you're looking for. If you include street furnishings or other landscaped features to help establish that street line and establish it as part of the overall design you're looking for the area. And then also if you provide for bike racks, which is again another pedestrian friendly element that we're all trying to tie in here. So it's the balancing that I talked about earlier, the balancing of the demand and convenience of a drive-through, which is by nature vehicular oriented, but also balancing that against the desire to keep Mansfield a walkable and pedestrian friendly community. We also talk about in paragraph 6 in here in the new regulations, the ability to allow parking, again, if necessary to accommodate the drive-through, to allow it in the front of the building as opposed to your typical guidelines, which encourage you to have it at the rear and side of a building. Then we get into the real nitty-gritty of about the queuing lanes, the size of them, the spacing in them, the number of queuing spaces required for different types of uses. We break it down between full and limited service windows for restaurants. And then we have separate queuing numbers for banks and pharmacies because they don't usually have as much of a demand. So we broke that into there. We added a catch-all phrase that said, though, notwithstanding these spaces that we're requiring and that we're setting forth here as minimums, the actual number of queuing spaces can be increased and decreased by the commission if it's supported by the traffic study. So really that traffic study, as I mentioned, is a critical element that's going to help guide you as to what the exact necessary design components of a particular development that comes before you and what that should be. So the balance of the regulation really then again just clearly talks about how to define the queuing lanes, queuing areas, how to mark them effectively, the need for a dedicated bypass lane, how to orientate the drive-through service windows and buffer them from view from public streets, to make sure they're compatible with the architecture of the underlying building, where and how to place the menu board signs. And then we have a provision that makes sure that any outdoor loudspeakers on the site in connection with the drive-through window will not violate your noise ordinances. So we reference the applicable noise ordinance section that the town of Mansfield has. And then, excuse me, something that I think a lot of people are concerned about with drive-throughs is that going to have a proliferation of litter and debris on the site because of the drive-through window. And in another town that I recently was working on drive-through regulations over in Tolland, we stated that as part of the special permit, you also have to have a specific program for policing and eliminating outdoor litter. That's got to be a key element to the proposal that's brought before you, so you know that that won't be a problem associated with having a drive-through. So again, we spent a lot of time going back and forth with town staff. They are consulting the town attorney and their advisory groups such as the Traffic Authority, reviewed a lot of literature on it, and this is what I believe is a good outline and design for Mansfield to consider moving forward to allow drive-through services, which I think we all recognize are high in demand for the convenience they provide for people, high in demand in light of the post-COVID world that we're living in, and something that is just becoming more and more prevalent, not just for restaurants, but I think that we're going to be seeing trends with drive-throughs moving to lots of other retail in the near future as well. It's just this new world we're living in, and the contactless way of doing business is very appealing to many people and to many businesses. So with that, I will open it up to any questions you may have and see where we go.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that comprehensive report. Maybe we can, if we adopt this, maybe we can sell it to other communities.
You know,
Well, that
why recreate the wheel, right? I mean, if
Right.
there's something out there that makes sense and works, I say let's use it as a starting point. And I will tell you, Mr. Chairman, that a lot of the other regulations in Connecticut that I referred to and consulted were sparse compared to this. This is a much more comprehensive regulation, and it goes much further than any of the other ones that I've reviewed, having to do with that balancing of keeping it a pedestrian-friendly community. None of the other regulations I consulted in Connecticut had anything to do with that. So I think you're definitely setting a precedent, and I think a lot of other communities would be well advised to consult this if they're considering going that route and adopting regulations.
Any questions? Yes, Meryl.
I saw a red flag when I heard you say that two drive-through per site would be allowed. It seems to me that's overkill for traffic management. So I was wondering where that fits into.
Okay, I can respond to that. So the reason we are proposing it to have up to two drive-through facilities on a site is because we do believe, although it's trickier when you start maneuvering two traffic circulation patterns, we do believe that many sites can accommodate more than one. And some of the design guidelines that I consulted that Linda had provided also talk about having multiples drive-throughs on a site. It really depends on the size of the site and what you can accommodate, and you can still have dedicated separate drive-through lanes. It is important to my client because the site we have in mind is large enough to accommodate two, and we have two prospective tenants, and we're confident we can design a program that has a safe and efficient traffic circulation to accommodate that. But again, if you're going to go much beyond two, you're going to need a really large site. That's going to be more of like a mall redevelopment area because you're just going to need so much area to deal with these separate queuing lanes and circulation patterns. But we don't feel it's novel or new to allow for more than one on site. It is implemented on other sites regionally and in other design guidelines that we've seen, and we do feel confident we could accommodate it here. And we have prospective users here that we'd like to be able to accommodate.
So it's not two lanes going to one store, it's two different stores, each with one lane.
Yes, the concept that, if you see fit to approve this regulation amendment, the concept that we're going to be bringing you is a 4-unit building, and on both ends, the anchors are going to be separate restaurants with drive-throughs. They will have separate and distinct queuing lanes, order boards, and traffic circulation areas. So that's what we would like to accommodate if possible. Any other questions?
I don't understand how a place with two drive-throughs is in any way supporting walkability. Can you clarify that for me?
Well, by nature, you're correct. The drive-through is a vehicular-oriented accommodation, but that doesn't have to be mutually exclusive of doing the development in a pedestrian-friendly manner, such as if we are able to provide for clear walkable paths, both from the public street line as well as adjacent properties to the restaurant, and provide perhaps outdoor seating for the people who might come. That is a feature that's implemented in a lot of streetscapes and walkable communities that are promoting that. So the fact that it's got two uses that can accommodate vehicles with a drive-through, I don't think means that it still can't be a walkable community and designed to encourage people to walk up and frequent and utilize the building and the service there as well.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Ken.
approximately how many square feet would these 4 buildings occupy? Or acreage, if you will.
Okay, so let me just think real quick. You know, I've got Matt and John on the line. Maybe one of you could jump in. Now, again, we're getting a little beyond the nature of the regulation amendment, which is, again, this is a widely applicable regulation amendment that would apply anywhere to to any drive-throughs and any restaurants who wanted a drive-through in the PB1 zone. But I'm not opposed to answering your question. It's just, it's a little off topic, and I don't have that information directly in front of me. But if John or Matt could just tell me how big our site is and how big the building would be, that would be helpful.
Hey, Matt, can you pull up the plan?
Yeah, it's gonna be a minute. I gotta pull it up. Just give me a few minutes to get it.
And I think that would be a good question for a future.
I raised it because
discussion.
the attorney did cite the idea that they were talking about a site that would have 4 buildings, 2 of which would be restaurants. I kind of thought it would be fair game to ask it. I'll withdraw it.
Okay.
I can tell you that it's 1 building. It's not 4 separate buildings. We'll just let that make sure that's clear.
A building with 4 units, 4 separate, distinct tenants. And again, the anchors on either end would be a restaurant.
We'll get to that later.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, Vera.
I would just say that this definitely has to be a special permit because yeah, we need to have control on this.
Absolutely agree. I think that in order to do it,
I do not think you can say that it can be allowed. I think it just without very careful consideration.
I totally agree, and that's why we do believe that the special permit is the right vehicle to make something like this happen. It gives you a lot of oversight as to the design particulars, requiring the professional traffic study in order to justify it, and then you still have your special permit criteria and findings you have to consult in order to approve the actual application. You know, such as compatibility with the area and no nuisance and no safety hazards. So I think it is going to require careful review and consideration, and that's the special permit process is the way to do it. And if you're not satisfied that it was then done right and to the appropriate design criteria and your satisfaction, then you could deny that permit. You have a lot of discretion with that.
Linda, are there any other speakers?
I do not believe we have any other speakers. I am going to I'm going to put up the, just as a reminder for folks that are maybe watching at home or on YouTube, we'll share the screen with the information. And while I do that, I did just want to note one thing that is Dory was going through the revised language for that was submitted today. One thing that I noticed is the 2 provisions that were deleted, as she noted, were very broad and referred to character, which reminded me to do a quick word search for character to see if we used that term anywhere else in the draft. And it is used under item 6, Article 10, Section 6, items C and D. And my suggestion on that is that if the commission were inclined to approve this, that there be a revision to eliminate the use of that term. Again, just to be consistent with where statutes are heading, and that we talk more about the physical context. So instead of saying the proposed parking layout aesthetically conforms with the character of neighboring properties, you know, the physical context and architectural design, something of that nature, so that we are eliminating the use of the word character based on recent statutory decisions.
gotta get rid of those characters. Don't want those characters anymore.
Linda, that's a good point. The applicant would have no objection to striking C and D or revising them as necessary, as you suggested under that subparagraph 6 there. When I did talk to the town attorney, he wasn't as concerned with that language and that provision as he was with regard to the front setback one. But I think the other criteria we have in there probably adequately covers it anyway. So we might be okay just striking it. But if you would be more comfortable, or the commission, I should say, would be more comfortable revising it a bit, then I have no objection to that.
Yeah, my suggestion on this does not have to do with Mackenzie. It has to do with the new zoning reform language that basically talks about not using character. Apparently because it has been misused by some communities, and that that character not be used unless it is specific to physical characteristics. And so we've been, I think, as we've encountered the word character in our regulations, which I'm loath to discover how many times it is used. But as we have done amendments recently, if we see the word character anywhere in there, we have been striking it and replacing it with something to be clear that what we're looking at is physical context in architectural design and site design, not any other types of character.
So in case anyone hasn't read it carefully, the other criteria in that section that Linda's referring to that would allow the parking to be either in the front rather than the rear or side yard. The other criteria are that the location of the parking areas is consistent with the prevailing parking area locations on neighboring properties. So again, look left, look right, look across the street. Where are they all parking there? Is it to the rear and side? If so, maybe it's not consistent, but if it's in the front yard as well, that would be a basis for allowing it. And then also, if the parking in the front of the proposed building is necessary when considering factors such as lot size, lot configuration, and reduction of impacts on regulated areas in order to accommodate the safe and efficient traffic circulation associated with the drive-through facility. I think those are fairly comprehensive and concrete enough to allow and justify a deviation from the otherwise encouraged parking to the rear and side. But I'll leave that again up to the commission.
Did we get any other callers, Linda? No. Okay. So is there any reason to keep this hearing open? Would someone like to move to close the hearing?
Before you do that, Mr. Chairman, if I may, yes. I don't want to recite it all for the record because it was in the application materials and my statement of justification, but I would just like to remind you that if you do choose to adopt the regulation, that a finding of consistency with the plan of conservation and development should be made. And I do have a couple paragraphs dedicated to that in my statement of justification, and I just would refer you to those.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I so move.
Okay, moved by Ward, second by Ron. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Hearing is closed at 7:13 p.m. Linda, would this be an appropriate issue to have someone write if someone wants to write an approval motion? Or is this something that we should discuss tonight?
You're now moving down to old business. So old business A has been tabled until August 2nd. Old business B has been tabled until August 2nd. Old business C, which is this application. So since the hearing is closed, yes, if there's someone who would like to volunteer to work with staff on a motion for the next meeting, we can do that.
Okay. I'm looking at you, Ken.
I put my hand up.
Oh, maybe Luann. Luann, you want to do it? Luann would like to do it.
No, I don't want to do it. I want to know if we're having any discussion on this. Because I think we should. I have things to say.
Yes, certainly. Yes, certainly. Let's have a discussion. Very good idea.
Yeah. Okay. If I may start, I'd like to say that I do appreciate all the hard work that Attorney Farmagali has put into this. I think it's a very detailed change, but I think that the one of the problems that several members of the commission have brought up is our I would say uncomfortableness with the including two of these drive-throughs on a single property. I think that we would definitely need to, I think we need to think about that more. We need to get more of an opinion on that rather than just saying, sure, why not? And I also think that perhaps one thing we could consider, since we do have all these detailed definitions of different types of drive-through operations based on the type of service, one compromise could be instead of having two full drive-throughs, perhaps allow one full service and one limited service window on a property. That might be something that would be possible, or perhaps two limited service windows and only one full service window. I'll just put that out there.
That seems like be a reasonable compromise. Ken?
I happen to share Luann's misgivings, particularly about having two operations with drive-through. I just think it's a bit much. And I think Sarah's commentary about how does that get to be pedestrian, okay, when you have this.
Come on down this way, not that way. I need you to stop moving.
So what if we had one limited and one unlimited? As for the, is that what you're suggesting, Luann? What one just pick up and one full drive through?
Well, I think we should discuss that and see if we can get any actual information about what we're talking about in terms of the space required for those operations, rather than just approving it. And with this sort of consideration that this is what this particular applicant would like, I think that we do have some real concerns about traffic and about the ability to impede pedestrian access. And so I think without some further information, it would be difficult for me to say, sure, fine, go ahead. And of those two potential options, what does that look like in terms of traffic? Does that make any sense? I'm not sure if it's possible to get more information about that, and that may be something Linda could offer about what a site would need for space to make that possible, what seems the most sensible for our community. I definitely don't think having two full drive-throughs on a site with the associated traffic and potential number of cars you're trying to have navigate through a small space seems like it's compatible with our plan of conservation development, which is really trying to gear this towards more walkability. And especially the area around Eastbrook Mall, that is one of the areas it specifically looks towards trying to make more walkable.
So I think, Luann, just to point out that there is, the criteria go into detail about a traffic study. So I think that's part of, it is a special permit. You do have to have a traffic study with that. I'm not sure, with the hearing closed, it's difficult for me to give you more information other than what is literally in front of you right now in terms of the proposed regulation. So it does have, a minimum lot size to consider two drive-through facilities. It does have the traffic study. And again, it's a special permit, so that you do have some discretion on that. I think that you could, and I'll verify that with the town attorney, that you could look at this and say, if we're going to consider two, we don't want to see two full service. That, you are, there is that just given what you're dealing with, you want to see, no more than I'd have to go back and look at the terms, the limited service versus full service. The one item that I would note is just their sites can be very different. And so that you could have, if you have, for example, a site the size of an Eastbrook Mall, you might be able to accommodate two full service drive-throughs at different ends without a lot of conflicts, which I think is where the traffic study comes in terms of, case by case basis. And I guess one of the questions, and I would have to ask the town attorney this, is if you basically said, well, we would consider this, but to have two full service drive-throughs, we would want to see this many acres, so that the 1.5 is limited to a limited service, two limited service, or a limited service and a full service. But if you want two full service, then you're looking at X number of acres. I don't know. And again, that would be a question for the town attorney, if that's something you could do as part of an approval motion or a change.
Is that something we could do as part of the actual application, or it should be done before that?
Well, the application is before you, and the hearing's been closed.
After, when someone wants a special permit.
It's a special permit anyway. What it would do is, right now, the way it's written is, if someone came in and said, I would like to put two drive-through facilities on 1 acre, they don't meet that basic criteria the way it is written today. And so that's something that, quite frankly, I think they'd have to ask for a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals to even qualify. So the question is, do you want, as part of, if you were going to approve these regulations, do you want to essentially say, we're going to approve it with the following revisions because of the concerns that were voiced, discussed during the hearing and by the commission with regard to the number of facilities and potential traffic impacts?
Sarah.
It seems to me that opening the door to drive-throughs at all is a sea change. As a commission, are we ready to say okay to that?
Yeah, because for many years we did not allow drive-ins. Right. So really, the big change would be having drive-ins instead of not having drive-ins.
Right.
And then a detail within that is whether there would be two or one.
So I guess I also have concerns about litter, and I know there's a plan. There's an item in the plan about monitoring litter on site, but my bigger concern is litter on roadways.
Yes, Katie.
I was just thinking about the litter problem, and I've been to the McDonald's down there in the Eastbrook Mall area, and no, there's no more litter there than there is over at the Big Y across the street. Litter is going to happen. People are just not conscious of their surroundings at times. I do like the idea, if you're gonna allow drive-throughs for banks and for pharmacies and that type of thing, then we should allow this. The other thing, though, is I do agree that they can't have two full-service ones without a lot more space. To me, it's just going to be a logistics nightmare of how to direct the traffic and without having any problems that way. I do have one question for Linda. At one time, that area was part of the Eastern Pathways
Gateway.
Mm-hmm. And they were going to be redoing that whole area. Is that going to conflict with where they want to have the driveway out onto 195?
So any applicant in this area that comes to us with proposals, we actually direct them to the Eastern Gateway study to look at the recommendations that had in terms of changes to 195. Obviously, those changes have not taken place at this point. But for again, this is generic. But since the PD1 district is encompassing that area where I believe the Eastern Gateway is proposed, the addition of landscape medians and some other controls, it's definitely something that when we meet with applicants in that area, we advise them of that so that they're aware that as part of any type of special permit application, they should be looking at this and going, okay, how can we conform and make sure we're consistent with what that study recommended in terms of improving traffic circulation down in the area.
Anyone else have a comment for discussion tonight? So we can discuss this again when we have a motion or motions. One possibility would be for someone to write a motion opposing it. If anyone would like to volunteer to do that. Another one would be to have someone write a motion in favor of it. If we had one in favor of it, we could still vote it down if we wanted to. We don't have to have both motions. The commission does appear to be split, so perhaps it would be good to take this up again another night after a motion is made. Ken?
Well, I would volunteer to have that acceptance motion and read, and therefore put it on the table again. Allow us to discuss it fully and make a decision with a motion in front of us.
Okay. All right.
So is there someone that wants to have an alternative motion in place just in case if the commission determines that?
Mr. Chair, this is Luann.
Yeah.
I don't want to write a motion in opposition, but I would like some clarity on whether we can suggest modifications to this or not. If it's just an up and down, that's one thing. But if we can suggest modifications with the applicant,
I think that's something we'll check with the town attorney, but that's something that we can explore in terms of. I know that there have been other amendments that you have approved with changes, where you have said we're approving it with the following revisions. But I will check with the town attorney in terms of how much we can do, and also we can have him review the approval motion before it's brought before the commission.
I think that's common for us to make changes to a motion. Yeah.
I would fully expect that would be something that can happen.
Yeah. Okay, so we're all on board. That would be then for the August 2nd. Okay. And Ken, let me just say that if August 2nd runs late, you're going to have to take over at 8:30 because I have a command performance in Singapore. But
okay,
so
this time that would be okay.
Not going to Singapore.
Not going to Singapore. But so if it's more than 2 hours, be prepared to take over after 2 hours.
Understood.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, just going through your agenda, there is one other item that we did not cover during our time period between the first hearing and the second, and that is item D under old business, which was the special permit application of Capstone Communities. And that application has formally been withdrawn by the applicants, and we did provide you with a copy of that withdrawal letter. So
a pity.
that is
After all the work we put into that.
that is no longer an application before you, which was actually why we canceled Monday's meeting, because that hearing was continued until July 19th, and since they had withdrawn it, there was no reason to have that meeting. So with that is all I have this evening, unless we do have the reports from officers and committees on here in case anyone has anything else.
I think we're good to go.
All right.
We are adjourned at 7:29 p.m. Thank you all very much for coming. See you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Linda.
Bye, thank you.
This conference is no longer being recorded.